Hello, team players, and welcome back. Today is going to be a Superflex League, and it's going to be awesome. So excited for this. Obviously, the difference with Superflex is that you have the ability to play the quarterback in a second position, being the Superflex spot, or you can have anyone else because it still is a traditional flex spot. With that being said, it's a very different kind of draft you go through. We're going to be doing an Underdogs today. It's going to be a great show. Come and check this out.
What's up? Joey just woke up. I can't
that'll
hear you,
happen. We got kids waking up in the background. Bob's not at the home site. He's at home instead of at work. It's a fun battleground, ain't it?
Well, it's a battleground. I was fighting with my downspout yesterday. Hopefully I figured it out, but probably going to have to hire somebody out to fix my mistakes. So it's always fun making mistakes when you own a house. You know, can always go wrong, can never go good. It's a very problematic, Joe. But I'm going to rack one up for us here. I've been doing a couple of these.
All depends on who's doing it. I've seen it good, bad, and ugly.
Yeah. Well,
all right. Let's rack it up, baby. Rack it up.
Yeah, I'm gonna rack up one for us here. And I gotta say, I've been kind of meandering around with some strategies recently with this Superflex, and I think that we're waiting for 10 people right now. But I think that there is a definitive comfort level where people are willing to risk it for the biscuit when it comes to which quarterbacks they're going to take versus which skill position players they're going to take. So, you know, I have seen and I've done with teams that they've taken 2-star running backs in the first 2 rounds, and then they don't touch running back at all, and they might hammer a couple of those, you know, second, third, fourth round, or third, fourth, fifth round quarterbacks, and it becomes
I like the team we did that on Monday with. That seems solid.
You know, but it becomes a question of when does the value fade away at quarterback for you to want to take one of those positional value players versus where is that value when it comes back to you into what quarterback you have to take there. So we're waiting for 7 people, waiting for 6 people here.
So to answer that question, my gut feeling is the value ends at Lamar. Like unless you have one of the first 2 spots, I want to have Chase or Bijan, particularly Bijan, because they're so light at running back. So that's how I feel about it.
There's a point in time where I think you're right. And I just kind of want to bring it up here on while we look at the big board right now, is that I have seen Jamar go as early as 3 and as late as 9. And so you have some variability in there. I've seen CD, the positions of where CD, Jefferson, and Chase go is really interesting here, because one of the things that's really kind of super clear is that there are still a wide array of wide receivers that are more than capable of putting up top level production on a week-to-week basis. Maybe not every week, but on a week-to-week basis, I think some of these guys down here in this 50s, 60s range do have a chance to clear a week where they could be a wide receiver, the overall wide receiver 1 in a given scenario. And I think that for me,
that list, so
I think that for me, when I look at this, it's like when I look at teams that I've created where I've taken a 2 wide receivers first. I'm just going to pull one up to show you guys one of them, because I just did one. I think this one was today. So I went with Jamar and Nico in the first 2 rounds. I was picked 6. And then in the 3rd round, Bucky was still there. So I was just trying to see like where I was going to land at quarterback for a little while. And I ended up with Trevor, Tua, and
Rodgers. Yeah, there's a weak spot there.
And the team didn't turn out as great as it could have, as it would have, you know, when I started it. Now, This team is super gross. This is a team that I drafted running backs kind of first. And I had Baker as kind of like the mainstay at quarterback and then just kind of shooting some darts there. But this running back room plus this wide receiver room, I think could also carry a little of that quarterback room on the backside. There's a lot of upswing there, and the tight ends are kind of just so in comparison to kind of what we did in comparison to this team here, where we're looking at two quarterbacks right off the rip, and then you still get that talent at running back when you're coming back in the next couple of rounds, if you're willing to sacrifice just a little bit of name value at the wide receiver. So I think that what I'm trying to say is that I think that it's really interesting where we could be at when we think about lineup construction points. You get what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So it's like, yeah, there's the pick that you're at kind of really will reflect. And I think that it's more important than ever to kind of zig and zag in this draft, particularly because if you see that somebody's, if a group of drafters is drafting all quarterbacks in a string, it does make sense to kind of not take the worst value of that string.
Yeah. You never want to be at the end of the run. You never
want to be at the end of the run, but it's also is that what's going to happen on your way back? Because once you leave Michael Penix, if Michael Penix says your first quarterback drafted, you have to have a lot of kind of like risk initiative in that. Then it's like, well, don't even draft like. I get like you want to draft.
Bob, I think what you're trying to say in a way here is you need to have 3 quarterbacks at the end of the 5th round for a Superflex league.
Well, you do, but if they're not good, you don't. Like that's kind of what I'm trying to say is that.
Well, here, how about we try this for the first one here that's loading? It looks like it's almost full. What if we limit ourselves to just 2 quarterbacks in the first 5 rounds?
Yeah, I think that's where I want to be at, depending on where our draft capital is. So we're at pick.
I'm saying regardless of where our draft spot is, let's see the big board here so we see where we're at.
So we're pick 8, and I think sitting here at pick 8 is going to be really interesting for us. I just did a draft with this CJ2K1. He was just in the last one that I did, which is really interesting. A couple of these other guys too were in the last
early,
one.
Bob. That's always a good thing.
But when I look at it here, sitting here, these first 5 picks, unless somebody wants to take Jamar or CD, these first 5 picks are all quarterback. This 6, 7, 8 is variable.
Yeah, if you tell me Bijan's on the board, we're taking Bijan.
Hey,
and then we're going to try to get Fields on the comeback.
I have seen Bijan fall to 10. In the one draft that I just did, it was Bijan and Gibbs right here, which, if you take those 2 running backs and you kind of suffer a little bit at the quarterback position, you have enough firepower there to overcome a Josh Allen. You have enough because you're not letting the guy that has Josh Allen get those 2 players, right? So yeah. you want to have some sort of advantage there. And I don't think that.
So to me, I think the advantage you can get is at the running back spot because there is such a cliff at
That's
running
what I was
back.
trying to say is that I think that there's
if you get Bijan here, to me, I'd rather have Bijan than Chase because of the cliff.
But look at this. If there goes Mahomes, if Chase is there, I can't.
Mahomes is not worth even at Superflex. He's not worth the 6th pick.
Chase is there, dude. I gotta take it.
No, it's gotta be Bijan. It's gotta be Bijan. There's not enough running backs.
Yeah, but it's Chase, man. It's Chase.
Click fast.
But look at that. That's what I'm talking about here is that we're looking at a string of 6 quarterbacks in a row. So what this tells me is coming on the comeback is that these 6 positions right here, this 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, are all going to be position players. And 25, 26, 27, 28, and 29.
At least 2 of them are taking 3 quarterbacks. At least 2 of them are taking 3 quarterbacks.
Well, this Jalen Hurts owner almost always takes Caleb Williams. So just keep that in mind. If I see another Jalen Hurts, Caleb Williams combination, I'm going to throw my head out the window.
So, Bob,
But look
to
at
me,
this.
this is Fields.
This combination right here is insane. If you would have got Bijan, like I said, Bijan and Gibbs, I think any of these options here, I'm okay with one of these two.
See, I want Fields above all of them. Fields is going to outscore Bo Nix and Murray. Fields is going to run for his life.
I disagree.
Or I want King Henry.
Yeah, I think we're going to make up a little bit of an advantage if we take Henry over Fields, to be honest with you. I'm not saying that the assessment.
I think Fields can be the. I think Fields can run his way into a top 5 quarterback. Henry just went there.
But see, this is what I'm saying though, is that like when I look at this is such a weak pick. And I just kind of like want
to weak at all.
I just want to say why is that when I look at this, when I look at where we're sitting right now in terms of the draft and how the draft is being shaken down, we have right here 2 teams to the right of us that have no quarterback, right?
Yeah.
And we're going to take another quarterback at 32. That is what we're going to do because these 2 guys are going to push quarterback those next 2
there's
picks.
At least 6 quarterbacks going after pick 32
right.
Because only 2 have been off.
Right. And what I'm saying is that like taking Fields here is like he's not at the end of a run. He's not at the beginning of a run. And so like
but you weren't going to get him if you didn't take him.
From just a structural standpoint, though, I think that I'm okay in Superflex format. I get the value is there for Justin Fields, but I am okay not taking him is what I'm saying. So here we have.
Well, see, I look at every quarterback after him. I think Fields can outscore them all.
Oh, I'm not disagreeing with you on that, with the exception of Bo Nix, but.
I think Bo Nix is poised.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure having him as QB, as slated as QB1 is the definitive value. Now, coming back around here, there's going to be some good positional value right here, but we might want to take Drake May.
I'm good with Drake May there.
Even though I'm looking at.
What I love about having Fields and May is that they both are incredibly stud. Yeah, but Bob, you look at all the other ones, you're going to get a stud in the 4th round.
That's what I'm saying.
There's
some advantage there.
Yeah, take Drake May and then just be done at quarterback. And then take whatever best stud is left.
Yeah. But this is all precipitated by, taking that 1st round stud instead of the 1st round quarterback. It's a different, it's a different kind of motivation.
There was a better value at Chase or Bijan than there was at quarterback 7. But now you have to take a quarterback or you won't have a second one.
Well, and that's the thing too, is that, some people, when we talk about like risk in terms of these drafts right here, when we look at the risk of not taking a second quarterback there, I think that risk is better if you're drafting, say, a Baker or a Kyler or a Mahomes. That like if you take just one of those guys, you are very comfortable in not taking a second quarterback right around here. But if you don't take one of those guys, it kind of precipitates that you need to take a quarterback. Like this is unusual to me, this 3rd round. Okay. Usually you see a string of quarterbacks get taken right around here. And what these guys have done right here is kind of built up. Okay. Is Justin Fields and Drake May plus Jamar better than Malik Neighbors, Caleb Williams, and Lamar Jackson? There's a story that can be made that yes. Is Patrick Mahomes
better than the first Thomas? One of those 3 aren't playing.
Maybe. And then you got the 3 quarterback stack in the back there.
So, Bob, I think this should be best available with tiebreaker going to running back. I would love to have Jacobs or Taylor with this pick.
I think we'll get Taylor, to be honest, because I think this guy's got to take a quarterback right now. I see that he probably doesn't see a lot of value there, but he might take Brock Bowers or McBride. So there you go, right there.
The quarterback. And so we look here in the 4th round, Bob. I definitely think we're ahead.
When we look at the 4th, and that's kind of like as the draft materializes, Joe, and you kind of look at where we're slated to kind of land, is Jonathan Taylor better than CJ Stroud or JJ McCarthy on a week-to-week basis? Most likely, yes.
Well, here, the way I look at this, since us and 10 have the same one receiver, one running back, and two quarterbacks, they're the apples to apples. Would you rather have Jace or Jamar? That's kind of a push. Would you rather have Taylor or Bucky? That's kind of a push. But I definitely would rather have Fields over Kyler, and Drake and Stroud is kind of a push. So I think that you're ahead of them.
Right. I mean, again, those two teams, that when we talk about structure versus like, because I've seen it go position, quarterback, and then I've seen quarterback, position. Do I think the Jalen Hurts, Brock Purdy, AJ Brown, Lab McConkey team is better? There's a conversation to be made.
No, yes, there's no running backs left. Like if we can have Breece Hall to us, Hall would be the home run.
Chuba's down here. I would be okay taking like Breece and Chuba. Kyron might even make it back to us. I've seen Kyron land here in the 5th, 6th round. It's all kind of, like I said, what's good, Andre? How's it going, man?
It's hard to say where the landing points are definitively.
Right. And like when it comes to this Superflex draft that we're doing here, everybody comes at it from a different direction, right? So now that this number 2 team has Garrett Wilson, Malik Neighbors combination with Lamar, I've seen people come out with that combination. I think it could be deadly. The Jaden Daniels, Stafford, Tua, I'm not too much of a fan of that. I think that Tua is kind of the last quarterback that I would want to take. But I don't see like the veritable need to kind of like.
So the Patriots and Jets don't have the same vibe, do they?
Say that again?
No, they're different. Okay. So yeah, Breece Hall to me is the no doubt pick. I get that he's top on the board, but we need a second running back and we have Fields. I think that's a perfect
pick. But I'd also like Marv here as well.
There's no other running backs. If you go to the running back tab, we're at the
disagree. I like Chuba.
Yeah, but I want 3 of them.
Yeah, but I think you're sacrificing too much. I think you're approaching that the wrong way. And the reason why is that when we look at how to, like, we've got a week 17 stack here, Joe. You kind of backwards your way into a week 17 stack, and I'm going to describe that in a moment. All in on Kyron. Isn't he on a contract year? Yeah, Andre, I am all in on Kyron right now. I was kind of waffling here and there for the first several weeks of the offseason, just because we weren't 1,000% sure what the coaching staff would do in terms of the running back game. They didn't bring in anybody Jarquez Hunter is a good talent, but they didn't bring anybody in to kind of overshadow Kyron. They brought in actually, in Devontae Adams, a guy that they're going to be able to move the ball downfield a little bit more with. And I think that when we look at the benefits of that for Kyron,
with you only starting 2 receivers, I'd rather take the 3rd running back here.
I'm taking Chuba all day, man.
I'm good with Chuba. No, I love Chuba or Walker, either one. And you're going to get one of
them. Yeah, I've been taking Walker. I've been taking Walker quite a lot, but I'm going to pair Chuba there. So
now that you got 3 running backs, I'm good with all this. I think this is an absolute great build.
This is why, Joe, I think that taking those 3 running backs there is a good idea. Now, one of these 3 running backs will probably not be in the top 15 by year's end. But taking a chance on them isn't bad, and here's why. When we look at it from a strategy perspective, you're looking at the back half of us right here. This back half of players, they already loaded up with these two with 2 high-end running backs and are most likely going to push a running back like in the vein of Trevion Henderson somewhere around here. I wouldn't mind.
We're the opposite. So we're going to be able to take a premier receiver. They're not going to take any, and then we're going to get a second premier receiver. It's the way to know what's behind you in the draft. I mean, this is set up for us so well because they're all being so consistent.
Yeah, and Andre, when it comes to it, like Kyron isn't the most efficient rusher, and you can look at his metrics to see that, and I think that every fantasy player knows that. But the fact is that he is a red zone. He's a red zone beast. He's going to get touches in the red zone where other players are not getting that many touches. And I think when we think of it in a redraft perspective or from a best ball perspective, where you're getting Kyron in the 4th round, 3rd round, most often. I think that that's where you're really making up a lot of value on people. Yeah, sure, he could fail, and he could fail spectacularly, but if he doesn't, what?
Scroll down.
If he doesn't, it's not going to be the end. It's where you get him at in terms of value. I think you're going to come out ahead on Kyren. I think his floor is 8 touchdowns. I think his ceiling is somewhere in like 13, 14 touchdowns.
And Andre, to your point of taking a future on them for the division, I have a future on them in the Super Bowl. I am big on the Rams this year. Big on the Rams. All right, Bob. So who's the best receivers on the board right now?
We're actually gonna finish off our running backs.
All right, I'm cool with that. You're never gonna have me to complain about finishing running backs.
So the reason I did that is that these guys back here are primarily going to stick with their 2 up here, and then Bucky and Bijan owner are going to have to push for some other guys. I like Trayvon's here because we have the quarterbacks, so we have Fields and May just finishing off the nice little quarterback running back stack. We'll take a late Pop Douglas. We'll take maybe.
Oh yeah, we need to take 2. We should put Hunter Henry on this team. We should put Mason on this team.
This is a nice, weird Week 17 Jets Pats stack.
And both defenses could suck. I mean, let's be totally honest. It's possible.
Both defenses are more than likely going to suck.
Well, if the Patriots defense sucked, that means the whole team's going to implode, which would be great. I'm all for rooting for that. You're just basically rooting for not a blizzard in the Northeast in Week 17.
Well, even if it was a blizzard,
we have the running backs.
All right, so now, to me, this is a tricky one. This is probably going to be Godwin for me, Joe. I know it's a little early.
You're not going to get him if you don't take him now. So,
but
Godwin can win your league. I'm okay with that. I'd rather have Godwin than Zay.
And Waddle. Do you want to go Waddle first and see if Godwin falls?
Not really. I want to go Godwin.
All right. So, we're a little weak there. We'll make up the value, I think, in a couple of picks. I'm going to be pushing Jacoby, Golden, Mooney, Ayuk. Those are guys that I'm loading up right there. We could backdoor a Zach Charbonnet maybe a little bit later if we want to just kind of go for the gusto. Now, this is kind of like
I want to load up on all those receivers that normally in a regular draft go between the 5th and the 6th.
Yeah, I think we're going to get some of them. I've loaded up a decent grouping of players there. Wide receiver right now, we're not going to get any of these 4 above that.
Well, if Olave falls, I'm not going to say no to that. I never would.
We're a little bit too back in the draft here to get that done. And now, as we look at how these teams are shaking out here, the Lamar Caleb owner has Malik Neighbors, Garrett Wilson, DJ Moore, Xavier Worthy, Roma Dunze. That's nice because they built out that nice Chicago stack. If it hits, it's going to be good for them. I haven't seen anybody in the Superflex. I haven't seen anybody in the Superflex, honestly, been able to build out that Chicago stack because they've always been pushing quarterbacks. You can see right here, a 2 quarterback owner, 3 already. So I'm willing to push a late quarterback because I'm fairly certain that our quarterbacks are going to be the starters all year. So there is that. Jordan Addison might fall here.
Well, I wouldn't even take Richardson.
I don't want Richardson. I'm not taking him.
Well, then Jacoby would be my pick. If you're not going to take Richardson, Jacoby would be where I'd go.
I refuse to take Anthony Richardson in this Superflex. One of the reasons why, Joe, is that he's already hurt. Part of me wishes they trade Ayuk to Washington. The disrespect is insane. I always joked about this to Joe, Andre, is that when we would do our home league auction draft, he always would end up with Brandon Ayuk, or I would always end up with Brandon Ayuk. And it always seemed that whatever year, Joe had him, he did all right. And then whatever year I had him, he did terrible.
Part of it.
Or it's like I didn't start him in the games where he was doing well because my player pool was pretty good. But man, if he had a different situation, I think that things would be on the upswing for him. I think you could comfortably take Ayuk if he was on another team, Joe, and not dealing with these significant injuries. He'd be up here in that Jameson Williams, DJ Moore.
Well, to me, it's the injuries more so than the team. He is by far their best receiver. Why he doesn't get viewed that way? So, Bob, I would much rather go Mooney here than anyone else. I am not a believer in Golden.
You're not a believer in Golden?
I get he's talented, but he's not that talented.
I mean, I've been taking in these in the Superflex more Golden than Mooney, just because of the kind of implied pecking order to targets. So what we've been hearing all throughout camp is Golden is going to be kind of the number one wide receiver in terms of targets on the team. Mooney, obviously going to be kind of third fiddle on the team in comparison to Drake London.
He's second fiddle. He's ahead of Pitts.
I was saying Drake London and Bijan. So you look at it, and when the game is on the line, who's Michael Penix kind of going to be looking for? It's probably not going to be Darnell Mooney.
No, that's not true. If you watch the Atlanta games, especially especially the ones Cousins wasn't hurt. That's what I'm trying to say. Mooney's a big part of that offense. And I just went through watching a bunch of Atlanta tape replays from last year.
Mooney, I mean,
it's a big part of that. And they really don't do downfield Bijan passing. It's normally all swing.
When you look at Mooney, and you just look at his numbers from last year, like the previous 2 seasons,
64 catches, 1,000 yards. That ain't that bad.
Right. So then you come up and you look at these other numbers, and you come and look at 2021 when he was, I believe this was when he was with Justin Fields. Coming across, it's a good combination of talent they have in Atlanta. And speaking of Ayuk, it's easy to forget Brandon Ayuk is a good football
player. I want to go Ingram here, Bob.
It's real easy to forget that Brandon Ayuk is a good football player. Just because it feels like he's either injured or not utilized in the way that he should be utilized.
With this only being 2 receivers, I don't see a value in a 5th one, but give me a starting tight end. Ingram to me is that guy.
So there is the flex available to us. I believe a running back will probably start in our flex with the running backs that we have. And what I like about the 4 running backs that we do have, all of those guys could get over 20 points in a given week, especially in half PPR. So I'm willing to push that. The guys behind us don't have any tight ends, except for that guy. I'm willing to take Ingram here if he's still available.
See, I don't even think that's a push. And I like Ingram a whole lot more than Jonnu Smith this year.
And that's kind of why I'm willing to push Bo Nix a little bit more, because I like the Bo Nix stack with Ingram with Ingram and Mims a little bit late. It's an easy one to build, and one that I think is going to be good for touchdowns, and especially in half PPR. That's kind of what I'm looking for. I'm not pushing Sutton with Bo Nix as much because I think that a lot of people will be, and they won't be pushing Ingram and Mims with Bo Nix. And I think that's kind of like where you can get a little bit of an advantage in the stacking game. Because you got to remember, everybody's stacking kind of the same builds. When you have certain combinations of players, people are stacking kind of the same. So the advantage is to see like, okay, well, where could we get some of that somewhere else? So like in this build, we have Fields, we have Drake May. So on the comeback, what do we want to build here? I think, I
think Coleman is an out of the box and blow up guy. Ramondre is also a very good pick.
We already have Henderson.
No, that's why I think Ramondre is a good pick. You're guaranteeing that game, since that's what we're ultimately going towards. I would go Stevenson or Coleman here.
I'm actually going to throw it the opposite direction, Joe. If Charbonnet's there, I kind of want to put him on there. All right, not there. We'll take Coleman. He's a not offensible click for me. I really wanted Charbonnet there as a little bit of a back alley for Chuba, because they play Seattle plays Carolina week 17 as well. Getting some of that running game, I think, is not going to be terrible in that game.
So, Andre, let me hit on your point here. With Golden easily being the best receiver in the Packers room, I get that he's obviously the highest pedigree guy, but you as a Packers fan will know this better than most. You guys are a great franchise, but you basically have failed on your last 10 first-round picks not named Love. I mean, all of those defenders, tell me one of them who's living up to the bill as a first-round pick. And you put Golden in a situation where it's going to be hard to grow up and get to the sunlight. He's got so many trees around him he has to fight through. And yeah, I know Watson's out for the year and Wicks can't catch the ball, but Dobbs and Reed are guys who will fight for targets. And that's my problem with Golden is he might be on the field an improvement, but in his rookie year, adjusting to the LaFleur system, which is one of the best systems in the league, it's not an easy transition. So I do think that's possible. He gives you the best long-term outlook, but I don't think he's going to give you the best fantasy year out of the Packers by far.
I mean, I disagree.
That's coming in third.
I disagree. I disagree for a lot of reasons, but the primary reason is that when we look at how the Packers were built last year, the beginning of that season, they were planning. It was very clear that they were planning on moving the ball downfield pretty evenly, right? And then Love gets hurt the first couple games of the year, and he never looked the same.
Yeah, they become a running team.
And then they primarily became.
I wouldn't mind Njoku.
Then they primarily became a team
for him
that was going to run the ball because of the injuries. And so you look at it and you say, okay, well, as we see the grand picture of things, Reed is a very talented NFL player that they utilize in certain specific situations. They brought in Savion Williams as a rookie. You got to think that Dontavian Wicks' experiment is over when you look at that they have Dobbs and they have Tucker Kraft there at tight end as well. There's a lot of options. And I think that, the reason to be scared of Packers wide receivers in general is because there is a possibility that none of them will put up great numbers
that's the problem.
When it comes to fantasy points. However, what I tend to believe if I'm drafting Packers players, let's say, for example, I'm drafting Matthew Golden. What I'm drafting Matthew Golden with the narrative in my mind of doing, hold on 1 minute. I want to take Dobbins here.
I'm good with that. Dobbins could be the number one.
I don't think he will be.
That's a crazy steal.
But notice how J.K. Dobbins has climbed, Joe. J.K. Dobbins in the Superflex format went from like 17th, 18th round. Then with the news out of Denver, now he's all of a sudden up here.
Well, he could be a starting running back.
So one of the reasons why I say what I say, Andre, about the Packers in general is that I think that there's so many ways that the Packers can win that not one specific player necessarily needs to dominate the touches. And so it's going to be kind of in best ball formats. I'm willing to take a little bit more Packers because I think that they're going to have each player is going to have their up and down games. In redraft, I'm probably staying away from the majority of Packers, except for Jacobs, because he's shown to be a finisher the goal line.
Well, Jacobs is going to get all the touchdowns. That's the thing.
But the fact of the matter is that I think that all of the Packers wide receivers that are being drafted are being drafted at fair value. Like when I look at Golden and I compare him, let's say I compare where Golden's going. Again, this is super flex, but the idea is that these players are kind of in the same market anyway. So when I see Golden versus Reed and I'm in best ball, I'm willing to take shots on both of those guys, but not on the same team. But I've taken more shots on Golden because of where they drafted him, what Jordan Love can do as a player. Like Jordan Love is capable of having like 40-point games and supporting a player that can have 100 yards, right? He's done it with Jayden Reed before. So I am more than willing to invest in Matthew Golden at his value because I think it's a fair value. I don't think you're getting anything. I don't think you're losing out on anything in comparison to any other player. And I think that the difference between the best year for Mooney and the best year for Golden, I think is pretty comparable when you think about it. When I look at Reed, for example, I'm taking less chances on Reed just because of the way that he's utilized. However, I am willing to say that he should get some more looks this year when Jordan Love is super healthy and they have a clear picture of what that wide receiver room is going to look like. I think without Christian Watson or without Wicks, that room gets cleaned up a lot more. Like if we get by the end of the offseason, if we get a room that's Dobbs, Tucker Kraft, Matthew Golden, and Jaden Reed, and then Savion Williams as kind of like a back end guy, I think that room just cleaned itself up a lot, and people are going to be less scared of investing in the Green Bay Packers room in general.
See, I would love it completely if Dobbs gets traded.
Dobbs could get traded as well. I mean, it's a total possibility that would happen.
Well, I would not mind taking Milroe here. I'm getting a little angsty at the quarterback position.
I know you are.
Although Milroe just went, so
you're fine. Don't worry.
I like the Shipley pick. So Shipley is a guy that we keep talking about, and the reason I keep talking about Shipley is because I am never been more confident that a player is going to get injured than I am that Saquon Barkley is going to miss half this season. He has the history of after a big year getting hurt, and he also has the history of if your name's not Patrick or if your name's not Derrick Henry and you've had more than 300 touches, you get hurt the next year. Derrick Henry is the only exception to that rule, and that's why I love Shipley in that spot because you're going to have him when the playoffs are on. And that's
I just realized that Hunter Henry's our third tight end. He just was like I was just clicking him because of Drake May, but I didn't realize I forgot we had taken Evan Ingram. I didn't realize that he was our third tight end.
Dude, I thought that's great. We're done now. Now this is just bullets.
So right here, these two picks, we're going to be taking two back-end quarterbacks like we did last time we were on the show. We're going to take two back-end guys, and we're going to fill these two positions with probably some wide receiver talent because we're sitting at a 2.653. I'd like to get that to a 2.67 or probably.
So two guys that I like. I like obviously Pop Douglas. I think we should put him on this roster.
Oh yeah, he's getting there.
I also like Clayton.
All right.
Because I mean, think about it.
Too.
I love the iOS.
Yoshi is good. We have Jamar, so I'm less likely to take Yoshivas though. This is a little bit of a weaker wide receiver room, Joe. Again, it's just kind of
Godwin's what Godwin was last year.
Right.
If Godwin he was last year, you have the top receiving room.
If only that Seattle went through with Dobbs and picks for DK, that would have been great. Then you wouldn't have even had to pick Golden.
You would not have drafted Golden had that happened.
You wouldn't like the Pats would not have drafted Golden, and then we just sat with DK, I think. So we're going to take Douglas here. So we're looking at a room. This is the team so far: Fields, May, Taylor, Brees, Chuba, Henderson, Dobbins, Shipley, Chase, Godwin, Jacoby, Mooney, Coleman, Douglas, Evan Ingram.
Dude, I really like this team. This is going to be hard to beat with the second one of the day. This is going to be a hard one to overcome with the next draft we're about to do.
It's going to be tough. I think, though, why this wide receiver room feels just kind of like a little bit weaker on the surface is because we have two tight ends that are worth a little bit more in terms of draft capital.
I think our tight end room's incredibly solid.
So
I think you zigged and zagged.
I'm also willing to take Noel as well, Joe, if he's there.
Oh, you should never not any Houston receiver I'm on the board with.
All right.
All of them. Because they all get hurt. All the Houston receivers are going to miss 5 games. So this guy will be the number 1 for 5 games this year. It'll be great.
I mean, there's
a late round pick like this, totally worth it.
There's a possibility that happens. All right, so we're gonna rack up Jalen Noel. Hopefully he doesn't get sniped right here. There he goes, gets sniped. All right, we're gonna take Roman Wilson.
Go Austin or Coker or Roman. That works too.
All right. I feel like every time I just say it just the snipe always happens. It was easy to happen. In my last draft, I took Milton. And I think that Milton's an interesting play. We know that Dak kind of performs really, really well in the off years from like every other year. He performs really well. But in the off chance that he does get hurt, I think that drafting Joe Milton, we know that Joe Milton has a decent cannon for an arm in terms of what we saw in his performance last year. But
if Dak gets hurt, they will have Cousins on that roster by Wednesday.
There's a reason to believe that will happen. I do think that
that's why Cousins is a more valuable pick. He's the one everyone will go get.
I think that Milton is an interesting selection here down in the Superflex league when we're looking at what's down here and in what you've already taken. So this guy took Dak, he took Rodgers, he took Flacco and Milton. Not the strongest of rooms, and in that scenario, I probably would take Milton. Say that again.
Give me Kenny Pickett.
You want Kenny Pickett on this team? After yelling at me on Monday that you didn't like Kenny Pickett and Kenny Pickett.
I don't like Kenny Pickett, but this group here, I guarantee you Kenny Pickett gets a start. He's the only one I can do that with. Or give me Browning. I'm also okay if we're going backups. Browning is a great one because Cincinnati is not hiding the fact they're throwing the ball 50 times a game, and Burrow could easily get hurt again. And Browning actually performed pretty good.
You typically speaking, I know when we ended the broadcast on Monday, we were talking about low end quarterbacks to kind of build around that had potential to kind of rise.
I like yours too.
These plays right here, I'm just highlighting a couple of plays that are interesting plays when we look at situations, right? When we look at,
I guess that's the question, Bob. Who do you think actually wins that job, Zach Wilson or yours?
That's why I'm not taking either of them right now until that becomes a little bit clearer.
Minshew's in Kansas City. Where did Superflex makes you look at backup quarterbacks? Where did the one who took Philly to the Super Bowl and got hurt end up? Wentz. Yeah, where did Wentz end up?
I think he's out of. I want to say he's out of the league.
Oh, he is. How about that?
Yeah, he's not in it. But any of these kind of like five guys, plus Mac Jones, Brock Purdy got hurt. Now he's not like the most elite backup option you could get. I think this one right here is like the most interesting to me because if Hurts goes down and Saquon goes down, do they go and take Kirk Cousins in a flyer with because they got Tanner McKee here as the backup? I mean, 45 attempts, 4 touchdowns. It's a flyer worthy performance based upon what that team does.
I'd still rather go Browning though because of the offense.
Oh no, I agree with you, but I'm just kind of highlighting a couple of the guys of why this is why I'm not scared about just taking 2 quarterbacks early. This is why I'm not pushing.
Well, we do live in a league where the last 3 years there's been more than 70 starting quarterbacks each year. I mean, you're guaranteed 32, but to get to 70 is a lot of injuries.
So like this kind of again, weeks 9 and 14, you're not going to have a super flex that's a quarterback. That's fine for me. Particularly understanding the fact that we do have some talent in the player pool, especially at the running back position, but also at the wide receiver position that can push where a low-end quarterback score would be in a given week, like a 16-point performance. All of these running backs right here, I think, have a lot of touchdown upside, particularly when it comes down to kind of like Chuba and JT. I think that there's a lot of touchdown upside there. Looking at the wide receiver room on paper looks a little weak. However, all of these guys do have a chance to perform well.
We're blinding our audience. That's not good. Throw it in dark mode.
I'll get you. I prefer on my phone to go dark mode, Jason, but I can understand not wanting dark mode.
They're watching it on their phones. Everyone watches on their phones. We have like 80% of our audience is phone based.
All right, so we're gonna rack up another one, Joe. We have time. If you need to bounce,
yeah, we got time to do another one. That was like pretty much exactly. I might have to bounce in the last couple picks, but I'll be there for the core in the beginning.
Yeah, and I think that coming in here, like we were talking about, again, this is a super flex draft. When we look at the super flex draft and we see the different strategies going forward, the double quarterback, the triple quarterback to start with, the mid-round quarterback.
Jason, you're the one with a mouse that's about to murder people zombie style here. Some people like the light.
Jason, I'm actually using my PC today. So the idea of dark mode never even occurred to me on the PC, because anytime I use the PC, it's always in, because it's my wife's PC. So we kind of share it. So let's rack up another one. We'll talk some strategy before it starts. We have 7 people waiting. If anybody wants to join, I would love to
get the second pick and build a Lamar team. I know we can't call that or force that, but that would be awesome.
If we got the second pick and could take Lamar, I think that, quite frankly, I would feel comfortable not taking another quarterback until, like, Geno, to be honest with you.
That'd be the 4th round.
It'd be close to the 4th round. It'd be almost the 5th round. But as you saw, guys, from the last draft, the last puppy Superflex that we did, there is value to be had if you decide to zig when other people are taking deep quarterbacks early.
Yeah, like taking Mahomes at 6 is not smart.
You just saw this is a 20-second timer. Yes.
That's right.
You can do a 30-second timer.
Underdog thing this year.
But I find the 20-second timers to be fairly competitive, and they do kind of force your hand into being aware of what you want to build before you get to the pick. I think it's an interesting way to approach Superflex, particularly when we look at Underdog
they do get done 15 minutes faster than a 30-second timer. You want to think that it makes that big of a difference, but it does.
And this is the thing.
By the way, if that's not fishbowl, I really hope that's a 20-second timer. My biggest fear is there's not a timer.
Yeah. And this is what we're looking at as well, guys, is that in this Superflex, it's 20 rounds. So in a typical Best Ball Mania, you're only getting 18. But in the Superflex, you're getting 20 to account for some extra quarterbacks. But that also means that you're accounting for some extra talent somewhere else. So, you're not going to be fully – you can make a team that's decently balanced. And I think that we can do a good job doing that. Or you can kind of overwhelm them from a different position. So, like, if I'm pushing running backs fairly early, as you saw in the last draft, there is you don't have to necessarily push so early. But I think by the time you get to round 3 or 4 – you do want to have at least one running back that's a top tier 20-plus point, 40-plus point potential that you should go after, and then kind of just feel out the rest of the room. And I think that when we're looking at, a lot of these second-round guys, typically second-round guys are skating down into the 4th round. I think it's nice. All right, let's see. Oh, we got the number 1 pick. Perfect.
Woo! I want Lamar. I think I'd rather have Lamar than Allen. It's worth a fight, but what do you rather have, Bob, Lamar or Allen?
I mean, I can make you a reasonable fight on it, just because I think
so. Here's my argument for Lamar. This is my entire argument.
I'm willing to listen.
Josh Allen plays the easiest schedule of the year, and I think he's going to get shut down in more games than Lamar in the 4th quarter. And Baltimore doesn't have that luxury. Baltimore's in a harder division. They need to win more games. And God knows Harbaugh loves running up the score more than any other coach except for maybe Detroit. And that's a tight maybe.
Yeah, I'm not like so far away on either of them either, Joe. I think that what we're looking at here from Josh Allen is just a player that gets more touchdowns, particularly in the running game, than Lamar does.
Yeah.
Lamar's not getting as many rushing touchdowns as people think he is.
But if they're taking the foot off the gas of Josh Allen because it's blowouts, he's not getting them either this year.
You don't have to like argue with me about Lamar. I am more than willing to take Lamar. Whoa. We got number 8 here in the house. Jason, Huron Riverbat.
Love it.
Love it, Jason.
Love it.
Love it. Now, when it comes down here, I'm really curious, guys, what Jason does here, because when we look at it and we see what's going to fall to Jason here.
Yeah, Jason, don't make the mistake and take Mahomes.
The quarterback
don't fall in
room,
that trap, man.
there is going to be a quarterback left here. Burrow is still potentially going to be left here for Jason. So
Just don't make him Mahomes.
That might be nice. Burrow made it. So we had some variation in this draft here. Jason, nice pick. We're looking at Jamar, Bijan, and Saquon in the last draft. That is reversed, right? So Bijan is all the way down here at 12. So when we look at this room's going to be a lot different than it was last time. And I think that that's kind of important to take a note of. So coming down here, we might skate back here. These are some guys that I'm thinking about, Joe.
So I'm not an A-Chain believer this year, especially in the half PPR. He doesn't get enough touches.
Yeah. I couldn't believe in these Superflex drafts, I'm always amazed by who falls. And I do think, I actually do think that when I sit here in the Superflex draft, I love position 1, 2, 3, 4, because you're guaranteeing one of those 4 quarterbacks. But I also really like the back end here because there's so much variety in terms of the structure of your teams that you can get. Like a Patrick Mahomes, Justin Jefferson is I think not bad at all. Baker, Bo, I've seen that before. I'm curious what the CD guy does. CD Kyler, maybe. We'll see. And then coming around here, Jason has his pick of any of those guys that he wants.
Genty, Henry.
The CD
but Bob,
Puka,
if Henry somehow makes it to us, one of those picks is Henry. If
the CD Puka, the CD Puka start, I think, is an incredible start. I think it's a very underrated start as long as he goes quarterback at pick 33.
See, in Underdog, I value the receivers less because you only start 2 of them.
Yeah, but that's why if you just take
way to go, Jason. Way to
if you just
Henry
take
so we can't have them come to us.
If you just take these 2 though, you can wait. Like you can if you take these 2 and pick 2 quarterbacks here and then load up some running backs here.
Yeah, but my point is supply and demand. There's just so many better receivers. So Bob, if you give me Fields and the best player available, I think that's the best thing you can do.
We'll see.
I think that's a hell of a turn with Fields and best player available.
We'll see what shakes down. I think Fields is going to get taken,
especially if it's a running back. Like if you can give me Fields and Bucky, I'd be all about that.
Well, we'll see. I think that the quarterbacks got pushed down in this one instead of pushing up.
Yeah, but they're not going to come back to the 5th. I mean, we can't be crazy about this.
No. I agree with you. We'll see what this Josh Allen Jr. does. All right, he took Fields. I don't want Caleb. I'm taking Nico.
Yeah, go Miko and Bucky.
What about Nico and May? And we hold out. What do you think about that?
All right, go May then. I'd go Bucky or May. But I get your logic. On May because you're not going to get another one back. If everyone in the world knows we need a quarterback, you won't get one.
Yeah. I like with this team specifically. I think it's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be interesting to see what running backs we get at the 4-5 turn. So we're looking at pick 48, 49. Yeah. Pick 48, 49 is not like terrible to be at. It's that Kyron Brees.
I'm okay with Kyron Brees. Yeah.
Kyron Brees, James Cook, Omarion Hampton. I'm willing to not take Chuba, Kenneth Walker. All those guys, I think, are locked and loaded.
You just refuse to have it sort by position, don't you?
Yeah, I do. I like to see what the room is looking at, until we get down to the back end, because right now we need everything. I don't really like if the value's not there, I'm not going to push it, is what I'm saying.
No, I get that too, and there's certainly logic in that.
So here you got.
I think I hate picking tight ends early even more in Superflex than I do in normal.
In Superflex, it's rough. In Superflex, taking a tight end early in Superflex, I think, is the death knell to most teams. I did it with Trey McBride, I think, in the draft that you missed, Joe, and it felt so disgusting. But the talent is there. So Jason took Justin Herbert, maybe looking to get a Ladd McConkey on the comeback would be I don't think that'd be terrible. I also like AJ Brown right there.
See, I think Vlad outperforms Brown like crazy just due to volume.
Again, if we're looking at running back and JT's sitting there on the comeback, I think it'd be interesting. So now, like taking a look at it, Jay Girth over there, 3 running backs. You can kind of telegraph that he will not be taking another running back. So that guy at pick 12 knows this, and at pick 60 and 61 will just push running back because he doesn't have to compete with this guy, but he does have to compete with 9 and 10. Like taking those 3 running backs early kind of just like walks you into heartbreak.
Bucky went all the way in the 4th. Oh,
yeah, Bucky's a 4th in Superflex here. Bucky's a 4th round player. That's why I thought maybe he might come back to us depending on what people took. JT would be a nice selection. Went with Ladd. Nice.
JT makes it. I'm on the JT bus. A guy we don't normally take a lot is Brown.
If AJ Brown's
if he doesn't get pulled, he's a home run.
Hey, Magic. Out of Breece, Kyren, Chase Brown,
here's the other one is if somehow Stroud falls to us, you never mind now. He just went.
We'll answer that question after we make our pick here, Magic. So I like this team 7. Saquon, JT, Dak, Amon-Ra. That's a very.
So wait, Magic. I'll answer that for you right now. So out of Breece, Chase, Kyren, and Walker, I go with the one who's going to have the most red zoom opportunities. And that's going to come down to Kyren or Chase Brown.
Red zone
I give the edge to Kyren significantly. But if you had if both of them give you a fair chance, but I would go Kyren of that group has the best chance. So I would like to go Kyren and Chase Brown if they're both on the board, Bob.
Chase Brown's
gone.
I
like them both.
Chase Brown's gone.
Well, then I want to go.
Want to go Rishi?
Hard to fight Rishi. I like Rishi. I like his game.
I like him better than all those running backs I just mentioned. So,
yeah, scroll up so we can see him because right now Magic's putting his Tom Brady picture over our picks.
So to answer your question, Magic, I think in terms of top 3 in PPR, I do think that Kyren is going to hold a lot of sway in terms of the touchdown numbers. I think that Chase Brown probably has a legitimate shot to be a top 8 guy this year. Breece is kind of a wild card for me. He could finish probably anywhere in the top. He could finish anywhere in the top 5 to like 15. I think that there's such a
the Jets are so
finish for him because his touchdown numbers are not projectable in a way. Like I think when we look at the touchdown,
they're not going to exist. They're the Jets.
When we look at the touchdown numbers for Chase and Kyren, I think that those could be a little bit more comparable in terms of like what we could be looking at by the end of the season because Chase Brown, they're going to be on an offense that's going to be able to move the ball. And there's going to be a decent amount of opportunity.
It's not a stretch of the imagination to say that the Bengals and the Rams are 2 of the top 5 highest scoring teams in the NFL. Translates more red zone appearances. Both of them love just handing it off. Kyren gets more goal line carries than Chase Brown, which is why I give him such the edge.
Yeah, and like I would say, like
they're both reasonable selections. To me, Breece, while talented, isn't going to be.
And I love Walker. I love Walker, but I don't think Walker is going to be top 3 by any stretch of the imagination. I think that Walker is one of those running backs that is a top 12 caliber running back, but never a top 3. He could get you top 3 on a week-to-week basis, potentially. There are days that he could end up in the top 3, but I think overall top 3, he doesn't really have a shot at it in terms of PPR. I think the guys that are going to finish top 3 in PPR.
To go to your next question here, Magic, Worthy or Devontae Smith. To me, this is Worthy all day, man. I'd say Devontae is falling down my love list.
Cooking down here.
So I'm not really loving the Devontae Smith list anymore. So look at him. Jason's getting the stacks.
Jason's cooking. I love that stack because we're looking at a week 17 stack where the Chargers are playing the Texans. I'm curious if he'll build a little bit of Green Bay to the Derrick Henry. And then, T with Joe Burrow, I think is stellar. Getting another quarterback, kind of the last guard of the quarterbacks. That is what it is.
Then we lost Hubbard, yeah. So, Bob,
right.
I'm fine with throwing Kamara on here. Kamara is a guy who's really growing on me. Because just think about a world where Olave gets another concussion. Not that far fetched, and Kamara is
My
the dude.
question to you,
so
Joe.
if you can give me Walker and Kamara, I think that's a win for the turn.
All right. Even with this, Kyron has a week 8 bye. You want to roll up 2 week 8 buys?
Yeah, I'm still okay. I'm still okay with that.
All right. Willing to do that. So we're going to have to push another running back at some point in time, but I think the next round I'd like to go wide receiver. Looking at the board, there's some strong teams out here.
So Jason, yeah, he'll be if he's a running back 3 on your team was built correctly. That I just got to say that, Chase, you did it right. If Kamara is your running back 3,
Jason, when we look at your team and we say like, okay, Kamara is my 3rd back. When you look at, is that a good option? Absolutely, it's a good option because Kamara, he's on a team that's going to struggle to get into the red zone, and this is going to have to be purely production based off of receiving kind of numbers here. And so, how is that going to translate into fantasy numbers? I think it translates decently well as a 3rd running back. We're looking at our team here. It's very different than the last team that we drafted. So just taking a look, Joe, at where we were at prior. So we were sitting down here, and now we're up here, and it's very much a different team. And I don't know if it's a stronger team or a weaker team.
And if you look, they both have very good high ends. The Rishi and Godwin experiment aren't that too far apart. Magic, to hit on your point here, I do not see Swift as a lock in the top 15 by any stretch. The Chicago offense, to me, is a train wreck held together by duct tape. I mean, that's what it is. They have 4 receivers, and only one of which is supremely talented, and they're hating him for some reason. And on the other side of the fence, the coach already hates Swift to the point where they got him out of town as quickly as they could, and the quarterback loves getting sacked. So there's not going to be a lot of great running opportunities for that there. I do not think it's a guarantee or a slam dunk at all. And did you just show me that we might be able to get Olave and Godwin on this roster?
Potentially. I like Jason's pick. I like Jason's pick of Judkins. I think Judkins is a nice compliment to Derrick Henry.
I think Judkins could be a dude.
As a number 2, on a best ball team. In redraft, I'm pushing Judkins a little bit further down my board, but in best ball, I'm continually willing to take him. I think here in the Superflex format, Judkins goes a little bit higher than he needs to because people are like really feeling the pain of not taking a running back early with all those quarterbacks. So he goes slightly a bit earlier than he needs to go. This is what I'm looking at, Joe.
Yeah, but if you put Olave, so you're looking at the 3 of Olave, Godwin, and Jones. That's a win. And any of those 3 is a combination.
Well, I'm taking Olave. I'm taking Olave and Godwin.
Yeah, dude, totally cool with that.
Double clicking that. All right, so now we look at
that's a sprint to the podium type thing, dude. I'm liking how this team is. I like the last team. Instead, it was gonna be hard to overcome. Godwin on this roster, last team he was the number 2 receiver. Lamar
makes it not much different. So as I look at this question here, I just want to answer this question really quick, Magic. Do I see Swift finishing top 15 easily? Not easily. There is a pathway for him to finish in the top 15. And what's going to have to happen most likely is because one of the things about DeAndre Swift is that his efficiency is not good. It's hard to think about that, coupled with the fact that there are so many more threats in the room to kind of like score. You can easily say the same thing about like Kyron, right? Where Chicago should be able to move the ball a little bit better. But the thing I like about Kyron is in terms of, okay, they play indoors some of the season. They have a better schedule in some games. And Chicago's a team that, like Joe said, Ben Johnson and the coaching staff of the Lions already kind of gave up on DeAndre Swift once.
When he was younger and faster.
In terms of competition, he doesn't have much competition because Roshan Johnson isn't the most elite option, and Kamanungai is a 7th-round rookie. So in terms of situation and opportunities, the opportunities are going to be there for him. So if he can make it with the opportunities that he's given, and let's say his opportunities a game are, in the stretch of both rushing and receiving, if he gets about 22 to 23 touches a game, I think that he could end up.
I don't see him getting any more than 18 touches regularly.
Well, that's why I said
because they're going to have too many long down and distances. He gets sacked too much.
He could make it there if that were to happen, but DeAndre Swift is not really going to be breaking off big runs right now. And the same could be said about a guy like Kyron as well. They both need volume in order to be successful, and you're getting Swift out of value, but I think Swift is on an offense that kind of projects more passing than they do rushing. I had Kamara, CMC, and Jacobs last year and lost in the final because I didn't have 2 of them. It hurts, Magic.
You lose 3 of your top 5 picks. But Bob, as you get ready for this turn here, to answer your question, how big do we think Harvey will fall? I think the reality is that Harvey will be a player that should drop precipitously between now and the end of August. The reality is that he is no longer the number 1 running back on that team, and it will take a lot of people a long time to absorb that fact. So I think that Harvey and Dobbins should essentially switch. You're going to see Dobbins continue declining. They're probably going to balance each other out in August of both being around the 8th, 9th round for a standard redraft 12-man team. But I would much rather have Dobbins because he's the starter. And that's the reality. Harvey is now going to be an ease-him-in rookie. Well, he was a 3rd rounder after all. He's not entitled to anything. And I'm on the Dobbins bus.
So I'm really curious how the camp battle kind of goes. I agree with Joe in some respects, and I've also absorbed some content, just talking a little bit about Harvey in that J.K. Dobbins, let's not forget, like he had a string of good games at the beginning of the season, then it kind of fell apart. And they became more of a passing-oriented team. But when I look at
projectable, by the way, all last summer, I'm the only one going against the grain.
I look at it, Joe, and I say, does J.K. Dobbins, is he able to perform? And I think that primarily where I'm sitting at is that if you build a team and you are taking Bo Nix early, I don't know really if I'm building any of those 2 running backs. But if I don't believe in Bo, then I might be more willing to put my stake into a couple of those running backs. And I'm more likely going to buy into Dobbins. We said this on Monday before he signed as well. Dobbins' value is like at the crater, right? You are getting him for pennies on the dollar. And even if he performs, especially in the best ball setting, even if he performs just adequately, and let's say by the end of the year he ends up with like 6 touches and 500 yards or something like that, you're not going to be mad at it because they're going to come in a game where he's going to get double touchdowns, right? I don't think it's going to be spread off over the course of the whole year. And then you look at it and you say, okay, well, a guy like Harvey, you have to draft with so much more capital. And, in the room that he was in already, and this is the news too, guys, that we were already walking into a situation where Sean Payton was saying, oh, we're going to give Audric Estime some more opportunities. He should have more opportunities. And then they went out and they got J.K. Dobbins, who's going to get opportunities. So what do they want to do with R.J. Harvey is the question.
This is the thing. They've already had eyes on Harvey. They've had the OTAs. They've had the rookie minicamp. So I think Harvey's clearly the number 2, and they just told you that. So, Jason, your question is, what are your thoughts on not drafting CMC, Olave, Godwin, Rice in a redraft? And obviously, you're all going to miss some time. Which ones would you want? So I don't blanket remove all of them. CMC is off my list because he's too expensive. Olave is falling cheaper and cheaper every day, and so is Godwin. I love those two at their values because if they don't get hurt, league winners. Rice, on the other hand, all comes down to is he going to get suspended? If Rice isn't suspended, he's getting drafted now like there will be no suspension. And maybe that's the way to take it. There's not one until there is one. That's fine. But of that group, I'm not afraid to draft Olave at cost, which is like late 5th and beyond. Same with Godwin. And Rishi, like I said, he's valued correctly if there's no suspension. But CMC is a big no touch for me. I don't like where he's at. I don't think he's going to get the volume that's going to support his numbers.
When it comes to redraft, I think Joe's absolutely right. Like in best ball, I'm willing to take the shots on CMC, given the right value. If it's not the right value, I'm not taking him as much. But Olave, Godwin, and Rice, I think it's fair to say that by the time redraft season comes around, mid-July, early August, late July, all that stuff, that we're going to have more news on Rice. And I think that right now with Rice where he's at, we took Rushy in this Superflex in the 5th round. Typically speaking, he's going in the 2nd or 3rd round of drafts. I think that when I look at the board there and I ask myself, like, is Rice a great pick? Yeah, Rice was on pace for like 1,400 yards and like 13 touchdowns last year with Patrick Mahomes. It's the only reason why most people are pumping Patrick Mahomes back up on the board. Because if Rashee Rice was getting suspended, Mahomes would fall back down like he was falling earlier in the offseason. But as more and more news is coming out that, hey, Rice might not get suspended, we've got now a player who can sling the ball around in Patrick Mahomes. He has 2 deep, incredible weapons that can go deep. It's a great pick. Godwin, people will say, and if you watched us a couple years back, Godwin was one of those players that really bugged me because it always felt like it was his time to shine and it never materialized because he got hurt. He's always a player that has a chance to get hurt. That's kind of just the history that he has. Did he play better because Liam Cohen was the coach last year? Yeah, probably. But also, let's not forget, like I said on Monday, Baker Mayfield's one of those players that he's a vet. He knows how talented his players are, and he's not going to forget how talented they are just because a new coach came in. The guy has earned his stripes playing on some terrible, Cleveland teams.
And also on the
Olave, I've shared my thoughts on Olave a bunch of times.
People were sort of downgrading because of Mbuke. Mbuke has never been the number 1 or even the number 2 receiver on his team, despite being a 1st-round draft pick. I get it. Ohio State's a receiver house. I get it. But still, the fact remains he never made himself the alpha. And he's in a room with 2 alphas. So I don't think that Mbuke is really a risk to take away from the value that is Godwin there. Bob, I love the fact that we're trying to queue up both tight ends to our quarterbacks here. Go through the roster real quick, Bob.
Hold on. Our roster's looking Lamar, Drake, Kyron, Kenneth Walker, Kamara Stevenson, Nico, Rashee, Olave, Godwin, Bateman, Kyle Williams, Mark Andrews.
So we're probably we probably should go tight end running back here. Oh yeah, dude, if you get Dobbins, it's done. Yeah.
Yeah. This is what we're gonna queue up if we can get it.
Yeah, that's a major win. If you can give me Henry and Dobbins. All right,
and
hot take, Magic, that you think Chubb will do better than Mixon. So I am on the record of being wildly shocked by how well Mixon performed last year. I just am. I thought that his career was more or less done.
Joe, Dobbins was taken.
Houston would distribute.
Joe, Dobbins was taken. Which running back do you
want? Probably Allen.
Allen?
I do like some Justice Hill.
I'll take Allen.
Yeah, maybe Hill. Maybe Hill.
I just took Allen.
That's fine. We got Hunter though, right?
Yeah, I got Henry.
So, I'm on the record of saying no Mixon because I was big against him. He gets hurt.
Jason took your boy, Joe, Jalen Milroe.
Well, that's early. But Mixon was by far the only one who could run behind that broken Houston line. And Houston's line, I don't really think it got better. It got different. It definitely got different, but I'm not sure it got better. And that's my concern with saying Mixon's going to do great. I think that what you really look at the two of them is for some reason they hate Dameon Pierce. Have not figured that out why. But do I think Chubb can outperform Mixon? That's all going to come down to Chubb's health. At their best day, Chubb ran circles around Mixon. Absolute circles. Is Chubb ever going to return to that form? Unfortunately, I don't think he will. I mean, that looked like a career-ending injury. And give him all the credit in the world to coming back and playing. I just think that this is just kind of an unfair question because I don't think Chubb will be. I don't think there's a chance that Chubb will be healthy enough to do it. And family, that's my point. Let Dameon Pierce go to another team and ball out because I think he will. Welcome, by the way, family. Welcome to all you guys. We got a couple new subscribers jumping in today's episode. Love everyone being a team player. Love you joining it. Always show up, give the love.
So I think that where the problem sits at with Chubb, I think Chubb can do better from a fantasy perspective than Mixon, but I think that the problem is going to come in terms of the red zone. So like you could easily see Chubb and Mixon splitting those red zone carries quite evenly to some degree, depending on how that ball was moved down the field. I think Mixon is probably still going to be their primary runner between the 20s, but it could be a time for Chubb to shine. I mean, like looking at the board earlier where we saw Jason take Jordan Mason right here. I think that Chubb's one of those guys that absolutely could come out of the woodwork. He wasn't a guy we were drafting on early teams because, there was no information about what team he would be on, what health he would have, and whatnot. But when you look at Nick Chubb right here, Chubb's one of those players that could be an elite option in terms of touchdowns.
See, my thing with Chubb is he's all or nothing.
Not yards.
If he wins the job, that means he's healthy and he will be amazing. But I'm more likely that it's going to be the nothing, which, by the way, Jason, that makes it a justified pick for you, getting someone who's an all or nothing guy this way. I do disagree with you on Milroe, though. And I know Milroe's the most running-wise talented rookie that got drafted, but he can't complete an accurate enough pass, which means basically you're getting a younger version of Justin Fields. So that could be a thing, but I don't think he ever gets on the field. Is the fundamental answer.
Joe, do you want to take?
I don't think Seattle's going to be bad enough that he's going to get playing time.
Do you want to take two Patriots wide receivers or not?
I mean, if Justice Hill came back to us, I want Justice Hill. But no, the Patriots receiving room is Russian roulette. Take as many bullets as you want. I'm fine with that. I'd rather have Noel though.
But we have Drake, so that's why I took.
That's true.
Douglas. So I mean, looking at our team so far, we'll take a look at Jason's team as well.
So we need to we're at what, the 16th round, 15th round? Where are we at?
Yeah, so we're approaching our next pick will be in the 18th round.
Okay.
This is Jason's team so far. We've got Burrow, Herbert, Darnold, Milroe, Henry, Judkins, Mason, Charbonnet, Chubb, McConkey, Higgins, Juwan, Golden, Njoku, likely, and Gesicki. I could see Jason pounding up a couple of wide receivers here on the comeback.
Yeah, he's going to need to.
We're going to take some late quarterbacks here again. I'll just queue up whoever.
Bob, I'm okay with taking 3 late quarterbacks.
Well, we need another tight end. We only have 2. We only have 2 tight ends.
No. Oh, we only have 2 tight ends. Gotcha.
Yeah.
I like Gray. You don't. Obviously, no Cole Kmet. That's gross.
Yeah. What's the bye weeks here? So we have bye week 7, 14. So we can take anybody. Realistically, in terms of the tight end market.
Yeah, we're not going to have any competition. It's just name a guy that you want.
Yeah, we could. I mean, I like Gunnar Helm. Houston has a couple of tight ends that could show up and do something. I mean, they just signed back Dallas Goedert, but Grant Calcaterra is still there on an offense that moves the
when
ball.
Goddard gets hurt, Calcaterra puts up. That might be a worthwhile guy because this is just going to be a shot in the dark anyway. Is Goddard healthy in the playoffs?
All three, plus you got Chig. If Chig's still there, maybe.
I think I'd go Calcaterra because you're looking for off different teams anyway. That's always your thing.
Yeah, like I don't really want to take. I mean, Chig could win it for us in a week. Totally could. Sorry, guys. I was just
listen. If Mark Andrews is not our starting tight end, we have problems. I mean, that's the reality. if Calcaterra is the only one who could outscore Andrews, it's just the way it is.
Yeah, Chubb does work, Jason, with your Chargers correlation. And you took Noel, so you get a little bit of that.
Yeah, Jason. Everyone wants their Chubb to work, man. It's just the way it is.
I just like the back end correlation a lot more often than not. If you're looking for players back in the back here, taking guys that are tied to your quarterbacks or tied to your teams in week 17, not bad. I mean, our last several picks, our last several picks were led by our two quarterbacks. I mean, Bateman, you look, Andrew, so Baltimore, New England, Baltimore, New England, New England, Baltimore, New England. So this team is very clearly tied to Baltimore and New England.
But Baltimore's projected to be one of the two highest scoring teams in the league.
But their week 17 matchups.
Maybe we should take an insurance policy on that.
Say that again?
Maybe we should take Baltimore's backup with our last pick.
Nah. I don't even know. Who's their backup? I don't like to do that.
No, type in Baltimore, see who comes up.
It's Cooper Rush.
Yeah, forget that. We ain't doing that. There's no that just ain't doing that.
So there goes Mariota. He's a guy that I like to take. A lot of people are taking him recently.
So Bob, I would way rather have the rattling gun than Milton. Unless you think Dak's going to get hurt. I think that there's a chance Shook gets benched.
I mean, that's fair.
I do. It's all disgusting.
What's the second quarterback you want out of this? You want Browning
take
again?
Milton, the other pick, by the way. Just take Milton. Take them both.
All right. I think that's disgusting.
Browning or Milton, one or the other.
I already took it, Milton.
It's all disgusting.
So gross. I can't believe you made me take the rattling gun. We were just talking on Monday about how I would not click the rattling gun.
What's wrong with the rattling gun?
And family, I do think if any team were to lose their starting quarterback, there would be conversations.
Any of the legit playoff teams would go for Cousins. Atlanta knows that.
Like if Jacksonville loses Trevor Lawrence.
No.
Yeah.
But the Rams lose Stafford, they are.
If the Rams lose Stafford, they have Jimmy G there. Maybe they like the old guy, but I'm willing to take a lot of shots down here at the back end in terms of these quarterbacks, though. I know family. I think it was you that was talking about. Might have been another viewer as well talking about Kirk Cousins and the value that Kirk Cousins could have at the back half of the season, depending on where he ends up or where he lands. Because again, he can still throw for 300 yards. He's just got to land on a good team. And right now, let's say Penix doesn't turn out or Penix gets hurt. Cousins is there. I think that it's not a bad choice. So you're looking here now at we're going to take one of these three tight ends, whichever one we land on. It's kind of Russian roulette. Honestly, when we look at the tight end room, there's so many options in terms of like back end guys that could give you 1 week, maybe 2 weeks. So I am willing to kind of scoop up one of these guys and play for the fences. I like Harold Fan, and everybody here who's watching knows that I like that. I'll probably take him. Last one we took Ninjoku. So here's Jason's last pick here. Woody Marks. All right. Getting a little bit of that Houston running back room. Can't say that's a bad thing. I do like Woody in terms of I've been taking Woody Marks a lot in terms of late plays. I and then they ended up signing Nick Chubb, so that kind of went out the window a little bit. We had a couple teams with Pierce on it. I think it's just really interesting. You see here Mariota, Kenny Pickett, nice combination of late round back end quarterbacks. AJ Dillon is a guy a lot of people are forgetting about. That a lot of people are forgetting about right now. Sorry about that. Misclicked. And we're just going to take Fan in here and end it out. Whichever one they want to give me. Come on. Come on. I want to click them. Draft them. Draft them. Oh, it's not my turn. Must have finished up. All right. So let's take a look at the board as it winds down here. Audric Estime probably wouldn't have taken him down at the back end here. But as we go back up to the top of the board, Jason, one of our viewers, was in the draft today. William Marks is buried deep now. Yeah, I mean, like, you look at, if you would have looked at this last week before the signing of Chubb, you would see that Woody Marks was the number 2 back on the depth chart, according to our lads. You go in this week, he's probably going to be 3rd or 4th back on the depth chart again, because I don't think you go out and get Nick Chubb and you don't play Nick Chubb. Looking at the back end of this board here, I just kind of want to talk about in the Superflex format that, like I said, these quarterbacks are not bad options at the back end here, especially if you're looking at the difference between Milroe, Flacco, and Sanders versus some of these guys. All of these guys have a potential outside of Flacco to maybe start one game or come in if injuries were to happen. You look right up here. If you're doing Superflex, you got to have, looking at round 5, and oftentimes round 6 is kind of the limit. You want to have 2 quarterbacks before round 6. And we did not take Kenny Pickett, Rock. We did not take Kenny Pickett. Joe thought about Kenny Pickett the last draft that we did, but the drafter over here, ASCAP, took Kenny Pickett. I think that Kenny Pickett isn't a bad choice, especially when we look at Superflex options and we look that he has a rushing ability that they could use. Joe Flacco is not the banner of health. He's old. He doesn't have good mobility right now. How will that play out? And then there's that question mark of Shedeur, Dylan Gabriel. But they went out and got Kenny Pickett before they drafted Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders. So I can see them starting Kenny Pickett at some point in time. Joe wanted to pick Spencer Rattler, and then we took a chance on Joe Milton. But looking at the totality of the board and seeing kind of just the different strategies when it comes here, big mistake in that you don't think Kenny Pickett will be good, or do you think in a Superflex league Kenny Pickett will be good? So as you can see right here, this board is much different than the board that we just came from in the last draft that we did. You're looking at, it's kind of, there are a lot of teams over here. Number 2, number 6, and number 8 with an 8, 10, and 12. And our viewer, Jason, who took 3 quarterbacks in the first 6 rounds. The other guys, Jason took it in 3 and 6. The others took 3 and 5. I don't really see a competitive advantage so much in taking 3 and 5, but you definitely need to have 2 by the end of round 5. Because you don't really, I've done a couple of drafts where I had Baker Mayfield up at the top here, and I took Baker with my second pick. I took Jamar with my first pick, and then Baker with my second. And then my next quarterback was down here at Jackson Dart. And that's a little nerve-wracking. You can do it. The risk analysis is there because you're getting talent out elsewhere. But to have Jackson Dart as your second quarterback, while it is a dart throw, it's one of those throws that kind of makes sense. Looking at the talent around that same time frame, you have a lot of tight ends being taken off the board, a couple of running backs that people want to take some chances on. So maybe Jackson Dart is a great play for you if you're waiting on quarterback, or if you only take one. I like the idea of drafting QBs that have definite replacement backups like Love and Willis. Yeah, family. I really do like that as well. Joe here talking about Spencer Rattler. We talked about him on Monday. He is going to compete for the number one job. I didn't see much out of him last year. I don't think that the pathway is there. Joe Milton, they went out and they got him. So maybe he does have a role on this team if Dak were to go down. Same can be said about Mariota. They re-signed Mariota. Sam Howell's with Minnesota. Miami went out and got Zach Wilson, also drafted Quinn Ewers, and you had Jalen Milroe in Seattle. So a lot of those guys there, I'm definitely going to take them most likely over a guy like Russell Wilson, who might play the whole season, might not. They might give Jackson Dart more opportunities. Daniel Jones, with the injury to Anthony Richardson, has climbed up a bunch of boards. There were a lot of early DraftKings drafts that was taking Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson in the off chance that those injuries would happen. And Kenny Pickett could be a golden ticket. I think that any one of those quarterbacks could be a golden ticket, but the fact that Kenny Pickett is being drafted in the last round of a Superflex best ball league makes him one of the players that is definitely a golden ticket style player, because while he's not the best quarterback in the world, he can rush the ball. He might end up with two or three total touchdowns in a game and win you a week. Is he going to play consistently enough to do that every week? No, but you're taking him in the 20th round. It's worth taking a couple of chances on him in that capacity. Taking Brown at quarterback seems suboptimal right now. Yeah, I mean, when we look at some of the quarterbacks, it's just like, I'm not sure that's where I'm at. Any Browns quarterbacks, and that's why they're pushed down the board so low, Jason. I'm sure that there was temptation a couple of times, but Shadur, Joe Flacco, you're getting a starting quarterback. Cleveland's starting quarterback is going in the 14th round or later in a Superflex league. Now, let's kind of just like back it up a little bit and talk about this. Judkins is being drafted in the 7th round. Judy in a Superflex league is being drafted in the 9th round. And the starting quarterback is being drafted in the 14th round or lower. So if you are taking, say, Jerry Jeudy, what I would more likely want to do if I'm taking a Cleveland quarterback is I would speculate, and I think this is what Rock is doing in a heartbeat, is saying, what's going to be Cleveland's starting quarterback in week 17? Is it going to be Joe Flacco? Probably not. Is it going to be Shadur? Probably not. Is it going to be Dylan Gabriel or Kenny Pickett? Probably. And that's going to be gross. They've played the Steelers week 17. So whichever one of those is going to be the week 17 quarterback, I think you have to take. Joe Flacco lost the job back to Anthony Richardson last year, and even when Joe Flacco was playing decently well enough for them. So I think that there's a lot to say about taking a Cleveland quarterback in a Superflex league, not in a regular best ball tournament like Best Ball Mania. But I think the golden ticket is there somewhere along the line. And to be honest with you, if you are in a Best Ball Mania tournament, which is only 18 rounds, he could still be a 18th round selection that could get you something. Dart with the dart throw. Everyone's looking for this year's Darnold. They're absolutely still looking for this year's Darnold. Darnold came out of basically left field with the performance that he had, and now he's going to be in Seattle, worse weather. So you see kind of that performance being ticked down here because he's getting drafted there in the 7th round. If Flacco starts till they're 0-4, Kenny Pickett until they're 2-9, Shadur until they're 3-12, and Gabriel finishes. Family, I can see a world where that happens. And I have seen in these Superflex drafts, people taking shots at Kenny and Dylan Gabriel in the back end. And to be honest with you, we've talked about this. We've talked about the fact that Jameis Winston is on the Giants. If Russell Wilson is working out, if Jackson Dart is working out, Jameis Winston can be a guy if a quarterback goes down that gets traded, because he's not in the long-term plans of the Giants. And again, the guy is a mistake machine, but profitable when it comes to fantasy. Malik Willis is a guy that came out of the woodwork last year. He was trash at Tennessee, looked terrible in the game that he started. And last year didn't look bad. So he's developing. He's a guy that's willing to take, that you'd be willing to take some chances on. Hey, By the way, Gardner Minshew is on Kansas City. If Patrick Mahomes gets hurt, do they want to spend money to go out and get, to go out and get Kirk Cousins, or are they going to be willing to play Gardner Minshew for a couple of weeks? All of this works when it comes to these back end quarterbacks, and this is why, like, when you're in this Superflex format, why I'm saying that spraying the board early at quarterback is definitely something that you can profit from, because as you can see, CJ2K here has 3 super solid options at quarterback. The wide receiver room is, nice. The running back room is a little beat, but that's what happens when you take 3 quarterbacks early. Or are you comfortable? And Jason, you can talk about your kind of comfort level with this as well. Darnold in the 6 is fine. But the value from Darnold to Russell Wilson is huge, as opposed to kind of that wide receiver running back room there. So I think, all things said, that you aren't losing out on much if you want to take 2 Cleveland quarterbacks at the back end of your draft. If you're here with an elite option, like sitting here with Lamar, Josh Allen, Jane Daniels, or Jalen Hurts, maybe it is profitable to take 2 Cleveland quarterbacks at the end, just in case you see which one hits. If they tried to deal Jameis back to Cleveland, the guy would immediately retire. Yeah, I mean, probably. But again, when it comes to Jameis Winston, this is more so like he could be dealable to any team. If Dart plays out, if Russell Wilson plays out in the ways that they want it, Jameis Winston can be one of those guys that goes to the Rams if Stafford gets hurt. They have good options there. He could go to Vegas if that doesn't work out and Aiden O'Connell is still trash. He could go to Jacksonville if that doesn't work out. I mean, there are so many places for a guy like Winston to land that I don't think that, like, in the back half of the draft, if you've already taken one quarterback and you want to end with 3 back end quarterbacks that have upside, why not? Why not try it and try to get a competitive advantage elsewhere? Like, for example, we have Lamar here, and I told Joe he could go to Tampa. Absolutely. I told Joe earlier that I wanted Drake May here in the 3rd. But when you look at it, this team could have had some elite upside if we went Lamar, Nico, Brian Thomas Jr., Kyron, Rashi, Kenneth Walker, Kamara, and then down here in the 8th round, taking Russell Wilson or waiting for Dart in the 11th round. You're definitely trying to get kind of a competitive advantage, because in the Superflex format, optimally, you want a starting quarterback. That's what you want. You definitely want a starting quarterback. Optimally, you want 2 starting quarterbacks because they have the potential to put up the most points. So ideally, 2 rushing quarterbacks or some balance between that is ideal. But is there a story that you could write that Nico and Brian Thomas Jr. could outscore Drake May? Yeah, for sure. Is it possible that a combination of Nico, Brian Thomas Jr., Marvin Harrison, and Rashee Rice all outscore Drake May and one of them ends up in your Superflex? Sure. Is it likely? No, but it's possible. And I think that as we go through and we do some of these different draft options, I'm saying to everybody out there, do one of these Superflexes. They're super fun. It's 150 max. I think, a lot of people, it pays to max out the 150. If you have the ability to do that, go for it, because I think you can make up some really interesting value teams. And most of these teams are not stacked with huge stacks. You see everybody's trying to get that, JJ to Justin Jefferson. You have Trevor Lawrence getting to Travis Hunter in there. So there's some nice stacking partners that you can do, but the draft board kind of just flips around. And we'll talk a little bit more when we come in next week about the room. All right, guys. So at the end of the day, family, I think just get 2 QBs out of the way immediately. That's the best draft. Yeah, I mean, honestly, from all the ones that I've done, I haven't been happy when I have not gotten 2 QBs in the first 5 rounds. And getting them out of the way immediately is profitable because you suck up the value in the 4th round, 5th round, and 6th round. Because again, this 4th and 5th round is filled with guys that are typically 2nd and 3rd round talent, especially the wide receivers. So if you're looking at this board, this is kind of the conversation that we were having at the top of the show, where you're looking at and you're saying, okay, like looking at the running back room after Devon Achane and typically after Josh Jacobs, then we have the Bucky, the Chase Brown, the Jonathan Taylor, the Breece Hall, the Kyron. That is definitely your 2nd round running backs to 3rd round running backs typically. And so what you're seeing, though, is the wide receivers are the ones in this format to fall, not the running backs. The running backs are kind of the ones that are taken up. And the wide receivers are basically like you've got, just scrolling up the board, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 wide receivers in the first 3 rounds. And then you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 running backs in the first 3 rounds. And that is very different from your best ball format that is on Underdog in terms of the BBM, in terms of the, Greyhound, the puppy, the golden retriever, all of that. And so looking down, then you're saying, okay, well, I'm coming around round 4. I'm still getting a 2nd round caliber wide receiver in the 5th round. Does it make sense for me to go quarterback, depending on where my position is, quarterback, running back, quarterback, running back, and then hammer wide receiver? Because you're looking at it, I think most people, look, Terry McLaurin here. That's a guy that's typically being drafted at the, 2nd, 3rd round turn, sometimes with Jane Daniels. And you're looking at it, he's being drafted all the way down here in the Superflex format. You can get him as your second round or 2nd wide receiver. And like this team right here, although they're weak at quarterback for sure with Daniel Jones and Michael Penix, there's a conversation to be had that you're sitting here with McCaffrey and Gibbs. You should go Trevor, Penix, and then sitting there with JSN and Terry McLaurin, because I don't see this team as being better without that quarterback. And again, you go over to here to Lance's team. It's the same kind of discussion. See you, Jason. Good to have you, man. We'll be doing another one on Monday, 3:45. You can punt tight end in standard, but not quarterback in Superflex. Absolutely. Family, there is some articles written out there of how to punt in Superflex at quarterback, but that punt comes, I think, when you already have one. You need one. Because like Joe said about injuries happen. And I think that if I'm targeting punt quarterbacks, I'm targeting the quarterbacks that are tied to rushing. So Lamar, Josh Allen, Jane Daniels, Hurts, Fields, May, Kyler, Bo Nix. I think all those guys have chances to get injured because they do double duty. They run the ball. Guys behind bad offensive lines. So Jake Browning with Burrow. We go down here to potentially Caleb Williams, but I don't want Tyler Badgett. But again, the idea is there that if you want to punt, you can. I just can't punt the whole position. I'm going to take at least one. McCaffrey at 11 is where he has been going. McCaffrey's kind of the player. Like, if you're sitting there at 11 like Jay Girth was, you're looking at it and you're saying, well, I took McCaffrey thinking that Gibbs wasn't going to be there on the way back, and Gibbs was there, so why not take him? This is one of those zig plays. You zigged, you didn't get the quarterback, but you should have taken the quarterback here. That's kind of the story here. This should have been Trevor plus Penix or Trevor plus CJ in some capacity. I don't think that this Josh Jacobs, like I said, I've drafted the team. I'm going to show you guys it right now. I drafted a team like that, and I'm absolutely not happy with it. So this is the draft that we did. I did this draft at night last night after messing around with my downspout. This was a really annoying draft. But as you can see, this is like I say, I always say to you guys that we're all about strategy on the show and trying different strategies and seeing what works. So as you can see, I'm here at the 9 hole yesterday. And as you go through the draft, there was this Josh Jacobs pick, there's no benefit to Josh Jacobs here. And you can see why. I get Kyron in the next round. So Josh Jacobs is kind of the tipping point for me. If you already have a running back, you don't need to take Josh Jacobs in the 4th round. If you or Jonathan Taylor for that matter. If you don't have a running back yet, then you want to hammer Jacobs or you want to hammer Taylor, because this team is gross, guys. We always are about honesty on the show. This team is so gross. Exactly, dude. This is what I'm saying, family, is like, I'm all about trying different things out. And I took Jacobs here because I was like, I want to see what happens. I want to see what happens if I build 4 running backs early. Well, we see what happens. It's not fun. It is not a fun build. When you come out at the end of the draft, this was the team. So this is the team taking a chance on a Cleveland quarterback. This actually was auto-drafted. I wanted to take Pickett a little bit later. This one was auto-drafted. Sam Howell. The running back room, great. The wide receiver room, equally as proficient. And then you have the tight ends paired up with the quarterbacks. Again, though, it's not profitable. If I'm drafting, in the Superflex format, I can't see myself taking 4 running backs in the first 5 rounds. Like I said, I wanted to try it to see what it looks like, and I won't do it again because you're putting yourself at such odds for not a super big competitive advantage. Even if I would have went wide receiver here and taken AJ Brown instead of Josh Jacobs, you could argue that would have been a better pick. But again, overwhelming, these 4 quarterbacks, I'm hoping in this format are going to be my super flex starter and my flex starter every single week. That's kind of what I'm hoping out of that. It would be a good draft with that one change. Absolutely. If this would have been CJ where Jacobs was, and then we would have taken out Flacco or one of those other quarterbacks, and we would have put Tucker Kraft on this team or somebody else of that caliber, I think the team would have been much better. And then you come over, and again, like I said, this was a draft that I did. This was the one we did. This is the one I did right before we came on, guys. So this draft I did, this was the 6th overall. I mean, it's possible. It's like, that's what I'm saying. Like, if you're going in there drafting that 3rd running back super early, like I did in that draft, family, you are hoping that they show out and they can score above CJ Stroud. So in that format, if you're doing that, you're assuming, if you're taking Josh Jacobs somewhere right here, so like in this draft, he went pick 44 overall. If you're taking Josh Jacobs in that position, you're hoping that he is going to outscore Trevor Lawrence and CJ Stroud on a week-to-week basis. And that was the play from that draft. Yeah, it looks ugly, especially if Baker gets hurt. But in that respect, the team is formatted to be, those running backs are going to be in my flex spot, plus those wide receivers could end up in that super flex or flex spot as well. And you're just hitting and hoping on Dart or Flacco in the off chance that they're going to outscore Josh Jacobs in any given week. I mean, that's a real strategy to be had there. You see in this one, this was also from this morning, I believe, while my son was sleeping. Drake May, all the way down here at 40. Again, we pushed him up into the 3rd round here. So you can see the competitive strategy here. This might have been yesterday too. I'm not sure. It could have been this morning. It was yesterday. But if you look at the whole team, you look at Trevor, Tua, Rodgers, Mariota, Bucky, Caleb, Brian Robinson, Ramondre, Jadon Blue, Emmanuel Wilson. So a little bit of comeback there for the running backs. And then Jamar, Nico, Worthy, Golden, Shaheed, Wandale, Westbrook-Akine, Strange, Freiermuth, and Fannin. I mean, there is a competitive – this team could be very competitive if things shake down the right way. And again, that comes from taking 3 quarterbacks in round 4, 5, 6. But by doing that, you are passing up the value of JSN, Devontae Adams, Garrett Wilson, Terry McLaurin, Chuba Hubbard, Breece Hall. So there is a conversation to be had that it's just better in most respects to lose out on a guy like Nico or lose out on a guy like A.J. Brown for the chance to get a better option at quarterback. But again, is Brock Purdy a better option than Trevor Lawrence at quarterback? Is Jared Goff a better option than C.J. Stroud? So these are kind of the conversations that you have to have in order to figure this out. And like we just did, we had a number one. Let me see if the draft is in the pool or not so that we can see if it's completed. The one that before you came on, we did 2 drafts today, family. And I want to pull up. This is the one we just did. So this is from the 1 spot. This is Joe and I's team from the 1 spot. So this team was the one we just did. So this was Lamar, a decision between Lamar, Josh Allen. I think you said it and forget it. And then we fought about Drake May for a little bit. And then the one we did before that was right here. Another team with Drake May. I got to cool it on the May. We sat there at 8. Joe forced me in the Justin Fields. I get it. We had a nice little week 17 stack. But if you see, we took Jamar and then taking May or any one of those quarterbacks and still getting this stack of running backs plus Chris Godwin as our technical number 1 at wide receiver. There are so many ways to approach this. But I think it's imperative, like you just saw from my Baker Mayfield team, I think it's imperative that you have at least 2 startable options on a week-to-week basis in the off chance that quarterback does explode. And which team are you tying it to, right? So like this draft right here, quarterbacks were abounding on the board early. So if you didn't get one, you zig, you zag. This team right here at number 5, taking Burrow and then taking Cam Ward and getting that value in McBride, Nico, and Genty, I think is a smart play as well. This guy here at Dak and Rodgers, you have CD, you have Amon-Ra, you have Jacobs, and then you have Joe Mixon, and then you pair that with George Pickens there to go with the Dak. That's not bad either. And then here, this team here with Gibbs and McCaffrey, again, I don't think you're going to win this Superflex format. We got to talk about that because this is the way. Evaluate QB at the 2-3 turn. If you pass, then you have to take a QB 4-5. Absolutely. That is the most imperative thing that you have to do if you're sitting here at 1. You're definitely taking him here. And then like this person did, Fitz Football, Herbert and Goff, and you're taking Omarion and Cook and then Williams and DK. I think this is a weaker team by taking Herbert and Goff early. I think it would be a stronger team by pairing one of those wide receivers there and doing it like that. I know it's early down there. Number 1 with the QB. Yeah, that doesn't work for me. It's different than what I've seen because typically speaking, taking that QB, especially after this QB run, kind of is like, okay, well, opening up value elsewhere because if the other people aren't taking quarterback and you already have 3, you don't have to worry about it. And they obviously didn't take another quarterback. They were done. So like they're not messing around there. But the shortage comes fast. So you can just see the difference here. So this board was the one we did today. This was our first one. You can see how the board lays down. Notice the spread of running backs versus wide receivers here. So you're looking at 3 rounds, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 again. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 wide receivers went in this draft. And the only wide receiver to go in round 4 is Ladd. But notice why. Because these guys needed quarterbacks. So the value fading is super real. And then if you look at the one, which one? This is the one I did right before the show. This is one I did right before the show. I'm over here at pick 11. I went quarterback early because I noticed these guys at the 8, 9, 10 weren't pushing quarterback early. They took that talent there. So I pushed quarterback early and got some insane value in Taylor, London, Adams, and Mike Evans right there. I wanted Marv, but he didn't fall to me. But some insane value in the wide receiver market. Looking at the total of the team, I think it's a decent enough team. It's not overbearing in the running back room, but the wide receivers I think could spike. I didn't take as many wide receivers because I dipped a little bit early in that bucket, and then coming off with those tight ends. I mean, there are so many different approaches to the Superflex League, and just kind of and this one was the first one we did the other day, and you're looking at the room, and it's much different. You see in the first 3 rounds, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 running backs again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 wide receivers, but the spread of quarterbacks is much different. And you can see what happens when one guy takes 4 to 5 quarterbacks very quickly. Yeah, I mean, like if we just take a look at this, let's just take this one we did on Monday as an example. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27. So 27 starting quarterbacks in the first 5 rounds. And then after that, Rodgers, so 28, 29, 30, 31 from the Giants, and then Cleveland is your 32. So 27 quarterbacks will go. And if you don't have 2 of them in this format, we'll just take the one we just did as an example, you're cooked. So again, this is one we just did. See if there's 27. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. So 26 quarterbacks in this one went in the first 5 rounds. I think it's a hard and fast rule now, guys, that if you're in a Superflex league and you want to manipulate how they work, I mean, you need to go with the flow. And if you're at the corners, you need to try and manipulate the draft. Absolutely. So if you're sitting here and you know you're not going to get something on the comeback, like right here, this pick 12, if you know you kind of want to take Trevor and J.J. McCarthy, I don't see a problem with pushing Justin Jefferson and another position play here and taking Trevor and J.J. McCarthy here. I don't think that's terrible. I don't think this team is any better from taking Patrick Mahomes, Trevor Lawrence, and J.J. McCarthy in the first 4 rounds. And like I said, like, unless you're sitting at the top 4 picks, I don't know if it's a necessity to take the quarterback in the first round, but definitely you need 2 by the end of round 5. All right, guys, so I'm going to head off. The other one was 29. Yeah, I mean, let's go back. So let's do this one. This is this is the first one we did. The first one we did, first 5 rounds. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29. Yeah, I mean, again, the only ones not being drafted essentially are the Giants. Hey, buddy. Are the Giants, the Saints, and Cleveland. So if you're willing to play roulette with the Giants, Saints, and Cleveland, for sure. All right, everybody, we're heading off. We'll be back with you 3:45 Eastern on Monday. Have a good weekend. Have a good rest of your week. Please join us again, 3:45 Eastern, local football flavor.